WWE has a long history of great underdog stories. You only need to look at the likes of Bryan and Kofi Kingston for evidence of this. And much like those performers, Liv Morgan has proven to be such a relatable presence on TV over the years that fans have taken to her in droves. Yes, from her time spent in NXT to being 1/3 of the Riott Squad, all the way to becoming SmackDown Women's Champion, we've seen her rise to the top of the mountain before our very eyes. But how did it all happen? Well, join us today as we take a deep dive into her entire career journey so far in Watch Me, The Liv Morgan Story. Gianna Jean Daddio was born on June 8, 1994 in Morristown, New Jersey, and it was there that, following the death of her father while she was still at an early age, she and her siblings would be raised alone by their mother. And one of the kids' favorite things to do during this time, as it happened, was to watch wrestling on TV, something which eventually led to all of them taking part in backyard shows with each other for the entertainment of their friends. In fact, in the years since, Gianna has gone on to describe those days spent taking pedigrees and powerbombs from her brothers and her sisters as the point where she first truly fell in love with the sport, with her understanding then that it was where her future lay. And as for who her favorite performer was in the ring at this time, well, that would be Lita, and so, deciding that she wanted to be the next top women's star in wrestling herself, Gianna would first start dipping her toe into the sporting world when she performed as a competitive cheerleader while at high school soon after this. Then, once school finished, she'd make ends meet for a while by working at and modeling for a local Hooters restaurant, all while formally starting her training at Joe DeFranco's gym in nearby Wyckoff, New Jersey. And that, as it happened, would turn out to be the best move she could have possibly made, because it was while training there in 2014 that she was discovered by a local WWE talent scout, with this person instantly seeing something in her and asking her to sign up to a developmental contract with the company from there. So given that this was her dream, it only made sense that the Jersey girl would quickly sign on the dotted line, saying goodbye to her old life at this point, as she then made her way over to NXT. And there then, after a few months getting to know the ins and outs of things, she would make her official on-screen debut at February 11, 2015's TakeOver Rival, when she played the role of a fan who jumped on Tyler Breeze during his ring entrance. After that, she'd make another appearance at NXT's following big show, TakeOver Unstoppable, on May 20th, there once again being part of Breeze's entrance. So with her now being given a taste of what it was like to be on screen then, Triple H, the head of the Black and Gold brand at the time, would start easing her into matches in front of fans, with the earliest of these seeing her lose to Eva Marie on the November 4th episode of NXT while working under the name of Marley. Of course, that name would only be temporary, however, and by December of the same year, she would debut under her new moniker of Liv Morgan. That said, this would not see her start winning quite yet, as in her reintroductory match, Liv would fail to get the better of her opponent, Emma. But she was still just a rookie at this point anyway, so had plenty of time left to prove herself. And this was something she became obsessed with doing then when, on the January 13, 2016 episode of the Black and Gold brand, she took part in a battle royal to earn a shot at Bayley's NXT Women's title. And while she didn't win the match that night, her performance would see some fans start to get behind her, something which helped to spur the rookie on towards picking up her first victory against Aaliyah a few months later. Following this, now on a roll, she would next enter into a program with Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, the Iconics, a program which saw the newcomer's profile start to rise even higher come the end of it. So perhaps it should have come as little surprise then that just a few months after this, on the November 21st, 2017 episode of SmackDown, Liv Morgan would officially make her main roster debut when, alongside Ruby Riott and Sarah Logan, she'd form the Riott Squad, the newest trio of heels on the female roster. And as the new kids on the block then, the Riott Squad quickly realized that, if they wanted to stand out, they would have to make an impact, with this being something they immediately did when, on the same night, they attacked Becky Lynch, Naomi, Natalya, and Charlotte Flair, firmly establishing themselves as villains to watch going forward. Of course, what would make this group more special than most stables in WWE at the time, though, was that, like their male counterparts in the New Day, Morgan, Riott, and Logan would all become very close friends in real life, with them soon considering each other to be sisters and rarely being seen apart as a result. So with that bond shining through onto the screen, they would continue to get more TV time in the weeks that followed as, after defeating Flair, Naomi, and Natalya in a 6-woman tag match, they'd each find themselves taking part in the first ever Women's Royal Rumble in January of 2018, with Liv herself entering at number 11 and lasting for just over 5 minutes before being eliminated by Michelle McCool. But even if she hadn't managed to light the world on fire during this one, it wouldn't stop the Jersey native from bouncing back in time for WrestleMania 34 that April, because there, she would get to take part in another Battle Royal, with her this time doing somewhat better even if she still didn't pick up the win come the end. And of course, while she was improving her stock, elsewhere on the card, WrestleMania 34 would also be the show where Ronda Rousey would make her in-ring debut for WWE, signaling to everyone that the division was about to reach another level of importance altogether over the following year. So, wanting to be part of that then, Morgan would continue to compete regularly when she and her Riott Squad stablemates were all moved over to Raw during that April's draft, with them making their intentions clear on their first night there when they interrupted a match between Sasha Banks and Bayley. After that, they would continue to terrorize the Boss and Hug connection for the next few months, regularly taking on them and other babyface competitors under different variations in multi-woman tag matches. Unfortunately, though, it would be this beef that would soon cost Liv the opportunity of a lifetime when, after taking on the Boss as part of a gauntlet match to qualify for the first ever Women's Money in the Bank contest in June of that year, she'd find herself being soundly defeated by her more experienced opponent. So now, even more upset, the Jersey girl would return to tag action, directing her aggression at Banks, Bayley, and every other babyface woman on Raw in multi-woman tag matches over the weeks that followed. And when she wasn't doing this then, she was also getting to work a series of singles matches when, in July of that same year, she'd have a trilogy of bouts with Ember Moon. That said, with her still being relatively new to the ring at this point, she would find herself unable to pick up the win in any of these singles contests. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the Riott Squad would regularly find themselves on the losing end of things whenever they bandied together too, with them at this point basically turning into cannon fodder for whichever babyface needed to get a victory that week. Still, even if it wasn't where they wanted to be, it was still a regular role on the show for Morgan, Riott, and Logan, with all three women understanding that, if they just kept at it, eventually their time would come. And the next step towards this time coming would happen when, after Morgan and Logan finally scored a tag team victory over the Boss and Hug connection on the August 20th episode of The Red Brand, the trio of heels would next get a chance to share the ring with the Bella Twins and Ronda Rousey. Yes, getting to compete against a huge mainstream star and the former UFC bantamweight champion was just what Liv Morgan and her teammates needed at this point, as even if it was obvious going in that they would be losing, it was an opportunity to raise their profile and show that they could be trusted to help give Rousey a good match during her rookie year. So when the 6-woman tag between everyone involved took place on October 6th's Australian show Super Showdown, that's exactly what they did, with each of the Riott Squad playing their part in making Ronda look like a killer here. And as a reward for that, at the all-women's pay-per-view Evolution just a few weeks later, the heels would be rewarded when they got a prominent spot on the card, finally putting their feud with Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Natalya to bed when they took them on in one more 6-woman tag. Yes, they would end up losing this one too, of course, but that was almost to be expected at this point, especially given how many matches they'd lost prior to this. And perhaps it was this which made them realize that if they wanted to reach that next level then, they may need to rethink their plan of action going forward. So returning to the drawing board, the Riott Squad would begin formulating a new direction for themselves soon after this, one which would see them decide to each individually go after the women's title when they all entered the 2019 Women's Royal Rumble match. Sadly though, at least as far as Morgan was concerned, when the time for this bout came on January 27th, things would go even worse than they had the year before as, after entering at number 4, she would end up being eliminated by Natalya in just 8 seconds, setting a record for the quickest elimination in the process. Then, to make things worse, while Liv would team up with Sarah Logan to take part in the Elimination Chamber match to crown the first ever women's tag team champions at the following month's titular pay-per-view, they would once again come out on the losing end by the time it was done, after having been eliminated by Nia Jax and Tamina. So hoping the third time would be the charm, Morgan would roll the dice once more when, at WrestleMania 35 on April 7th, she returned to the Women's Battle Royal, this time faring better than she had at the Royal Rumble, even if she did ultimately lose, a result that was becoming all too familiar for her. Yes, it was a hard pill for the New Jersey natives to swallow, especially as, in the main event of that very show, the women's division was reaching its greatest heights yet, when Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, and Charlotte Flair all took part in the first ever women's WrestleMania main event. Rather than be anywhere near that spot, however, Morgan and the rest of her Riott Squad counterparts were struggling to even pick up a victory at all, with them having by now firmly become pigeonholed as jobbers to the stars. So maybe in some ways it was a blessing in disguise when, as part of the 2019 Superstar shakeup later that month, Liv would be separated from the rest of her stablemates when she was moved over to SmackDown. Sure, it did mean she wouldn't be able to travel on the road with her best friends anymore, but it also meant that, now a singles performer full-time, she would have a chance to reinvent herself and finally become the star she always believed she could be. And to signify this new day for her character then, she'd officially turned babyface for the first time on the main roster when, on the July 16th episode of the Blue Brand, she confronted Charlotte Flair and challenged her to a match. Of course, predictably, she would lose this match too, and while it did represent yet another instance of her finishing her night by staring up at the lights, at the very least, with her new alignment in place, there was hope for the future now. It was just a shame then that she really did nothing of note on SmackDown after this, with it since coming to light that a number of different producers backstage were pitching a variety of different ideas for her, only for each and every one of these to be rejected by Vince McMahon himself. Yes, in WWE, if the boss doesn't see a future in you, it's the kiss of death, as with his opinion ultimately being the only one that matters, there's not really much else you can do at that point. So this was why it came as such a surprise when, after many assumed her potential as a star to now be extinguished, Liv would end up getting a renewed push upon returning to Raw in December of that year. And this push would see her be inserted into the Bobby Lashley, Rusev, and Lana storyline as, revealing herself to be the secret lover of the ravishing Russian during her kayfabe marriage to the Almighty that night, she would finally find herself with something to sink her teeth into for the first time in forever. Of course, even if she did now have a storyline though, this was one where she would have to tread carefully, as with WWE not exactly having a great history of doing gay storylines, and with Liv being good friends with openly gay superstar Sonya Deville behind the scenes, she wanted to make sure it was all carried out in a respectful way. And maybe that's why it was for the best then, that as the weeks went on, the romance aspect of the angle was quietly dropped, as Liv would team with Rusev to take on Lashley and Lana in a series of tag and singles matches, one of which actually saw the babyface get a victory over Lana on the January 27, 2020 episode of Raw. So riding this new wave of momentum, Morgan would once again set her sights on reaching the same level of the likes of Becky Lynch when she staked her claim at main eventing WrestleMania herself. And how did she plan to do this? Well, by entering the 2020 Royal Rumble and winning it, of course. Now that said, if you've been watching WWE over the past few years, then you know she didn't win this one. And while this may have been a disappointment for her at first, any bad feelings were quickly washed away when, soon after, she would get to reunite with Ruby Riott, albeit in the form of an on-screen feud. So with the match between them eventually taking place on the March 2nd episode of Raw then, it would be left to Sarah Logan to act as the special guest referee, with her trying her best to keep her friends in check here as they each let out their kayfabe frustrations on each other. And when Morgan ultimately picked up the win during this one, it would finally see her start something of a win streak, as at the WrestleMania pre-show match just a month later, the Jersey native would also snag a victory over Natalya. After that, as the world shut down, she would use the free time she now had, not working on the house show circuit, to start building a nice side career for herself when it was revealed that she was studying to become a real estate agent. On top of this, sometime around here, she would also begin dating former WWE star Bo Dallas, with the two still remaining together at the time of this video's recording. But of course, that was all personal stuff, and when it came to the ring, there were a whole host of other ambitions the former Riott Squad member still had left to achieve. And while she may have initially planned to go it alone in these ventures, she would end up being pleasantly surprised when, on the June 22nd episode of Raw, the company would begin teasing a reunion between her and Ruby Riott. Yes, it seemed like after their time apart, the Riott Squad were finally going to be reunited, with initial plans being to bring back Sarah Logan into the fray eventually too. Unfortunately though, despite Morgan and Riott getting to team up together for a little while here, things would ultimately be cut short when, in June of 2021, Ruby and Sarah Logan would be part of a mass wave of WWE releases. And this, of course, would leave Liv as the only remaining member of the stable following that, causing her to have to watch as one of her friends returned to the Indies, all while the other joined up with AEW and gave a boost to their women's division. So now, having to carry the torch in WWE alone, she'd restart her quest to reach the top of the singles division when, on the June 11th episode of SmackDown, she'd pin Carmella to qualify for that year's Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. And despite ultimately not winning this one when the time for it came a week later, the Jersey girl would soon rebound when she picked up another pinfall over Carmella at the following month's Extreme Rules pre-show. Then, when the 2021 draft came in October, Liv would take all the momentum she'd been building over to Raw, as there, she'd quickly win a fatal 5-way match to earn a shot at Becky Lynch's Raw Women's title, assuring herself at this point that she'd give it her all when the time for the bout came on the December 6th episode of The Red Brand. Sadly though, her all would not be enough on that night, as the man ended up being simply too much for her to handle. And to make matters worse, the same thing would happen when they had their rematch a few weeks later at January 1st, 2022's Day 1 pay-per-view. Still, Liv wouldn't let this keep her down for long, as by now, she could feel she was closer to reaching her potential than ever before. But it wasn't just her that realized this. No, fans were starting to realize this as well, with many of them beginning to get behind the underdog in greater numbers. And that would be enough to power her on as she continued her quest towards winning a world title when she entered both the Royal Rumble and the Elimination Chamber in January and February of that year respectively. Then, when neither of these worked out for her, she decided to change things up again after finding a new ally in Rhea Ripley, someone who would go on to team with Liv over the next few weeks as they each went after the Women's Tag Team Championships. Unfortunately though, when the duo came up against then-champions Sasha Banks and Naomi on the April 18th episode of Raw, they would be unable to get the better of them, with all this leading to Ripley turning on Morgan after the match and severing their partnership in one swift blow. So with the former NXT Women's Champion from there joining forces with Edge and Damian Priest in the Judgment Day, her now prior partner would find allies of her own in Finn Balor and AJ Styles, creating a situation where, as an honorary member of the Bullet Club for one night, Liv would join them in a 6-person mixed tag match at June 5th's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Yes, getting to align herself on screen with two of the most popular performers in the company was yet another sign that the Liv Morgan train wasn't stopping anytime soon. No, in fact, it would only pick up speed from there, as on the June 13th episode of Raw, she'd resume her goal to become Women's Champion when, alongside Alexa Bliss, she defeated the team of Doudrop and Nikki ASH to qualify for that year's Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. And learning from the mistakes of prior years then, this time Liv would prepare herself for every possibility, with that being enough to see her ultimately overcome her opponents and win the briefcase, granting her a title shot at any time of her choosing. So now the question was, when would she cash in? Well, in a backstage interview soon after the match was over, Liv would tease the answer to this when she suggested WrestleMania might be a good time for her to reach the top of the mountain. That was, of course, all just a red herring, however, because instead, with Ronda Rousey defending her SmackDown Women's title against Natalya later in the show, fully confident in the belief that it would be the only defense that night, Miss Money in the Bank took the opportunity to surprise the champ by cashing in, from there pinning the former UFC star in 35 seconds to finally win her first world title. Yes, after all her years of chipping away at things and climbing up the ladder, Liv Morgan was now the top woman on SmackDown. And as it stands at the time of this video's recording, that's where she remains. She even went on to win the rematch at July 30th's SummerSlam, albeit in controversial fashion, but given how hard she's worked to get there, we weren't surprised that she managed to overcome the odds once more, because as she's shown throughout her career so far, even when it seems like she's down and out, she'll always continue to live forever. Well guys, what did you think of the video? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, as well as follow Wrestle with Andy on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.